Chapter 18. Back to School. Monday, May 7, 2007. It was a dark morning. The sky was cloudy. It was the first months of winter. 6 months had passed without getting on a train. The doorman at the train station once again welcomed the boys from the House of the Jade Clovers. For them it was a pleasure to see them return to school. Everyone would continue their studies. No one chose to drop out of school in those months at their homes and at the ranch. Gavin, Roger, Daniel, Alvord, Marycross, Mariah, Angelica, Louis, Adrian, Priscilla, Hector, Arthur, Aaron, Rasmus, Elisa, Carly, Samantha and the others took the first train that morning. Car number 12 was packed with students from the house. When the train left, they began to wonder what was the first thing they would do when they arrived at the school grounds. "Guys, what's the first thing we're going to do?" "I carry the orbs in my backpack," Black asked as he moved his backpack and a sound of glass sounded inside it. "The first thing would be to go to Professor Berenice," said Louis. "I bet we won't have to look for her. She will receive us," said Marycross. "She will receive us with all her kindness and sweetness, ha ha ha," said Gavin in a sarcastic tone. "It would be better not to show her the orbs at once, and wait for her to communicate something to us," he said. "Angelica, it's true. We don't know if the minister will go to school today either," added Roger. "He's probably just going to welcome us. The typical talk about whether we learned from our mistakes and blah, blah, blah," said Adrian. "That's for sure," said Mariah. "Let's just let things continue and take their course," said Priscilla. "Right, so we'll see what happens," said Alvord. "The important thing is that we already have the orbs," Arthur added. "We'll see what happens. May luck be with us and be with us," Black concluded. After about 50 minutes, the train arrived at the school. Everyone got off the car and entered the main gate. As a group they all went to the hall of the House of Jade Clovers and waited in their seats for the arrival of the train. Teacher that corresponded to them that morning. That day. In an hour it was class with Professor Sonia. She announced that Professor Berenice had an important message to give them. 10 minutes passed and Professor Berenice made her entrance. Everyone stood up and greeted with a loud, "Good morning." "Good morning, young people," answered Professor Berenice, and she mentioned, "I see that the time of reflection in your homes made you mature, and that is shown in your greeting. You have learned good manners." Everyone in the room, standing, continued to pay attention to the teacher. She walked from door to door with her hands together behind her back, looking at the floor. When she finally took a seat at the teacher's desk, she looked at the group again and said the following: "It's unfortunate. What happened 6 months ago, it was difficult to make that decision that day. Director Yuri did not want to, but as the supervisor of education, my decisions will always be above her, which," she said, "which could cause irreversible trauma in your education. They are young people of 18 years old, but well, I notice that the room is full. That indicates that no one deserted or dropped out. I wrote to many of you and sent letters to your parents, apologizing for such a drastic decision, but many understood. From others I did not receive responses. Those who refuse to respond to my correspondence leave a lot to talk about. It shows how they raise their children. Let's see. Mr. Barry, how did these 6 months of suspension treat you? Can you tell me what you learned? How did you feel? Do you feel a change in yourself?" said the teacher as she stood in front of Adrian's desk. "Wonderfully," he answered. "Do you think that now you are a better person who will respect your superiors?" asked the teacher. "Teacher, seriously, only time will tell," said Adrian. Well, young Barry, I'm afraid that if you haven't learned your lesson and haven't reflected in these 6 months, your future isn't very bright. It could be devastating," said Berenice with a sarcastic face. Adrian put his hands together and rested his head on them on the table in his seat, while he looked at the teacher carefully and she at him, in that silence in the room. Indira added the following out loud in response to the phrase that had been said. Professor Berenice said, "The future will belong to those who build it hard with work and love of their dreams." Professor Berenice raised her head and looked to the back of the room where Indira was and responded, "Very well, miss, you are right, it is an important phrase, perhaps. Were you reading during your suspension period? Has Professor Calders helped you with classic readings in literature and history classes? Given that, at no time did I ask them to talk about that. Welcome, Miss Maxwell. 5 points less for you." The majority of the room began to feel that tension again and tried not to look at Professor Berenice. Indira began to lower her head and leaned back in her seat. After Professor Berenice's response, she turned to the front of the room and said, "Anyone else who hasn't learned their lesson in these 6 months? Who is willing to lose points by talking without my authorization? No? None? Nobody else? Perfect. That's better. Insolent children, how I hate you." Daniel Black raised his hand in silence. Professor Berenice looked at him and said, "Yes? Do you have any questions, young man?" as she raised her head. "Yes, ma'am," Black responded. "Go ahead. Tell us," Berenice said as she crossed her hands, then she looked at Black and he in turn putting the tips of her fingers together. "I was curious to know, when will the minister come?" Black asked nervously. Good question, young Black. That's exactly what I was coming to tell you. The minister will come in a few months. I hope you will start looking for the orbs by then. That day with the minister I will be receiving the order from you, and I know that you took the orb from me necklace. Take it as a loan. Then you must return it to me. And we settle some pending accounts. In the same way with the red orb of the House of the Scarlet Eagles. Until then, have a good day and a happy week. The teacher answered and then left, but not before. Give each student the date of the minister's arrival, which would be Wednesday, June 11th, 2007 at 10 in the morning in the gym. The days passed. The night before June 11th, some were at the ranch, in the common room doing different fun and leisure activities. Arthur and Roger played pool. Adrian, Priscilla and Gavin played a card game. The girls they watched television. Samantha drew. Mariah studied with her saxophone, and Black talked with Lewis outside the room, on the terrace, about what awaited them the next day. Who do you think the minister is? Black asked. I just hope he's a nice guy and not a clone of Berenice, said Lewis as he leaned against the railing of the terrace. I'm very curious, and at the same time, a little nervous. What will the ceremony be like to give him the orbs? Said Black. What gives you that insecurity? Lewis asked. Everything. The trust. What if it's a witch's trap? It is a small group of people we can trust. In addition to that, strangers are people we cannot trust. We do not know what they have up their sleeve. Black mentioned, it could be, but we just have to be prepared, said Lewis. The orbs are part of the prophecy. I'm not sure if they have some kind of power. Just look at them. They keep flickering, said Black while showing Lewis with his hand how the window of the family room lit up. Meeting room. I insist, whatever happens, we must be prepared, said Lewis again. Looking towards the horizon on the terrace. Yes, for now, we must go rest and be ready for tomorrow, Black concluded. The night ended, and the next day, at the school in the morning. In the plaza in front of the clock, Gavin, Daniel, Lewis, Roger, Marycross, Mariah, Angelica, Priscilla, Adrian and Alvord were gathered waiting for signs of upon the minister's arrival. They spent more than 20 minutes searching for clues about this man, but there were no signs anywhere. Black looked at the hands of the clock, and it was still 9:45. Are there no signs? Black asked. I went to take a look at the main gate, but there are no carriages, horses or anything out of the ordinary, Lewis answered. Maybe it comes flying in on a zeppelin. Ha ha ha, said Mary Cross in a sarcastic tone. I passed by the teacher's office, but I didn't see anyone. Professor Berenice was drinking her cup of coffee like every morning, said Gavin. Mariah and I took a look at the other entrances, but also, there are no guards guarding those entrances, said Angelica. It would be better to go to the living room to wait, said Alvord. Black. Do you have the orbs in your backpack? Asked Priscilla. Yes, everything is ready. Black responded, raising his backpack. The sun is starting to shine harder. Let's look for a shade or go back to the living room, said Roger. Wait, what is that? Adrian said as he looked towards one of the school's hallways. Suddenly, a group of Scarlet Eagles students approached where they were. They're not going anywhere, said one of them. Wow, what do we have here? Mary Cross and her silly little friends. The Clovers, said a boy named Damien, 9th year, pale, with long black hair. Do you want trouble? No? You better get out of here, said Mary Cross abruptly. Hey, calm down. Don't act like that. We just came to ask you some things, said Damien. What things and what do you want? Gavin answered. Nothing. I just wanted to ask you to please return the orb that you stole from our house, said Damien. I don't know what you're talking about, said Gavin, ignoring the question. We didn't steal anything, cried Mary Cross contemptuously. Please. The entire school knows it. You were the thieves who broke into our recital 6 months ago, and while there, you entered our house and took our orb. Return it, or I will have to take them from you myself with my own hands. Damien insisted. And what do you want it for? Asked Gavin. That's none of your business, but, well, you see, Professor Berenice gave us some Category A and B tasks, since she noticed that it was impossible for us to collect the orbs. Like the boys from other houses, all thanks to you. Cheaters, said Damien. Other houses, you say? But, it was just a test between you and us, said Gavin. No fool. Each group of 6th years from each house had to bring them together, but what happened? Some fools wanted to be too smart by cheating, answered Damien. Why do you want it? They were entrusted with Category A and B tasks. It is no longer their concern. We only have a reply, said Gavin. Do you think I look stupid? You took the real one from our house, and we came to recover it, and thus, we would prevent you from delivering the complete package to the minister, causing you to fail the year again and expel you. Ha ha ha, said Damien. It won't be so easy, said Gavin. When all of us are done with you, we will have it, and it will be very different years here, and we will all live in harmony in the school, without you, the incompetence of the Jade Clovers. Now, give me the orb, said Damien, and 3 more students took a step forward and threatened with their weapons, and the rest waited. Gavin and Mary Cross took a step forward and were ready for the duel. Adrian and Roger decided to accompany them in the duel, and the others waited, protecting the orbs. Damien announced that no one would be left out of the duel, so they would be by group, which led to the boys forming a second duel group with Mariah, Priscilla, Lewis and Alvord, and a third group with Black and Angelica. The first group's duel began. Damien used fast on him and his companions to gain more agility and speed in turns. Mary Cross created a barrier with Reflect, using his staff on the group to prevent any type of attack due to status effects. A girl from the Scarlet Eagles used Berna on the group with a large flare. But the barrier created by Mary Cross deflected the attack towards the girl and set her arm on fire, causing a status effect. Gavin threw his boomerang and the attack had a group hit. Hitting the 4 members of the Scarlet Eagles, the boy to Damien's right began to use Frieza with a shower of ice needles, and they destroyed the barrier created by Marycross. Adrian agilely launched some explosives, creating a cloud of Smotoxarga, leaving the Scarlet Eagles without visibility, causing them to lose their turn and rendering the fast created by Damien ineffective. Roger took advantage of this to attack Damien and the other 3 rivals with his trident, defeating his henchmen and only Damien in the duel. His allies had lost the duel, they could not continue because they were exhausted. Damien called the second group, so Priscilla, Louis, Alvord and Mariah were preparing, but when they were about to start the second duel, a cloud of fog flooded the plaza, absolutely nothing could be seen. So the duelists they stayed on the sidelines, and that's when Professor Berenice appeared. "Enough," said the teacher. Next to her was a man, with black hair, light skin, black eyes, an elegant suit. His face had wrinkles from old age and some scars, also a short girl, light skin, with brown hair. "You, Scarlet Eagles, to your classrooms, immediately," shouted the teacher. "I'm very sorry that you saw these clandestine duels, Mr. Minister. The students do not always follow the instructions about what is prohibited," said Berenice. "Don't worry, Professor Berenice. They are young, I don't blame them," the minister said kindly. The rest of the boys in the plazoletta were shocked to see that the minister was in front of them, out of nowhere. He appeared in front of their noses, after they had spent several hours wondering and searching about his arrival. "Young people, this is Homer Frost, Minister of the City Council's Education Department, and this is Lorraine Belizan, Head of the Education Department. Both are already here to observe and study your behaviors, and soon I will inform you when you must present your homework to them," indicated Berenice, presenting one by one to the boys. The 3 left and the boys immediately went to the living room. There, again, new letters from the school correspondents were waiting for them. Daniel opened his letter and read it aloud to everyone, where it said that November 3rd, 2007 would be the day the students presented the orbs to the minister in charge. "What? It's forever," said Gavin. "I hate waiting," said Adrian. "We must think of something to do. There are no more clues about the prophecy or indications of supernatural activities, and since we have just reintegrated into the school, we can't. They are going to assign us a task of category A, B or C," said Black. "I have a plan. We will see if it works. We will need Mariah's help. At the ranch in the afternoon I will tell you everything," indicated Marycross. The voice fell. Afternoon and everyone gathered at the ranch to listen to the plan. "I have an idea, but it will be quite difficult and complicated," commented Marycross. "What do you have in mind?" asked Priscilla. "I was reading a book about time and dimensions, and I found on one page a series of steps for advance time," said Marycross. "Really? Is that possible?" asked Gavin. "Yes. But we have to be very careful. One wrong step and we could change the weather, for better or worse," said Marycross. "And what kind of steps do we have to take?" he asked. Black. "We need a wind musical instrument. Blow it." "Following some musical notes and a clock," said Marycross while showing the page of the book where she found the information. "I once read a book about a boy who traveled in time by blowing a ocarina," said Louis. "That's why I thought Mariah could help us," said Marycross. "Sure, count on me," said Mariah, very determined. "And what should Mariah do?" asked Angelica. "First we must find a clock, big, and with it we can play the song," said Marycross, pointing out the first step on the page. "There is the school clock in the plaza," Adrian mentioned. "The clock of the Temple of the Painted World of Euphrasis Dreams," said Roger. "We must not do this in the school. And the other place is very far away," said Marycross. "The clock of the Great Cathedral?" asked Alvord. "That could work, but what do you want to do?" asked Marycross. What do you mean? Asked Priscilla. Well, there are different songs. You could advance time, go back, which is dangerous as I tell you. Advancing time is also dangerous, but it has less risk. You can also change the weather, the seasons, sun, moon, rain, snow. It is possible to create a lamp to transport yourself from one place to another, call animals and heal wounds. According to the instructions in the book I read, explained Marycross, if time could be moved forward, that would be great, so we could go to the minister quickly, said Gavin. How do those steps work? Asked Black. I'll show you. We can use the clock in the great cathedral, said Marycross, but we can't go in there, said Gavin. It won't be necessary to go in, said Marycross, winking her eye at Gavin. What notes should I use on my saxophone? Mariah asked. Marycross took a crayon and began writing on a blackboard in the meeting room about the steps to advance time. According to the book, if we want to advance time, we must play the notes redo fa redo in front of the hands of a clock. That is why I told them that it will not be necessary to enter. We can play the song in front of the great cathedral. And with some weapons like those of Gavin, Alvord or Black, that can hit at long distances, we could turn the hands of the clock. Marycross argued. Okay. What date should we put on the clock? He asked Gavin. The date is November 3, 2007. We must place the hour hand at 3, the minute hand at 11 and the second hand at 7. We must stop the second hand at 7 with a Frieza attack. That way the ice won't move it, said Marycross. Leave that to me, said Priscilla. Excellent, once we have the hands placed correctly. Mariah will play the song and we will all put our right or left hand on her shoulders or back, and we will be transported to the 7th of November, said Marycross. Who will go? Aren't we going to tell all the members of the house? Said Gavin. The best thing would be just the 10 of us. The kids will also be at that time. The clock will transport the time of everyone in the town, said Marycross. What would be the other songs? Asked Mariah. The songs to change the weather would be Sunny Day, Re-fa re-re-fa re. Full Moon, MIFA-MI-MIFA-MI. Rain la re-fa sol. Snow, la fa re sol mi. Call animals to ride them si la fa. To create a transportation lamp it would be do re-fa la. Yes do, and to heal wounds it would be re-fa do fa re-re, explained Marycross. And what other steps must be done for it to be effective? Asked Mariah. Well, it says here that for a sunny day, it must be dark and rainy and in front of a light or bonfire. Play the song with a flute, saxophone, trumpet or any wind instrument. For the moon, the day must be between 4:30 and 5 in the afternoon, and play the song in front of a rock. For snow, in front of a frozen object or ice. For rain, the day must be sunny and play the song with nearby water. For the animals, they will be those that are trained by their owners or masters, said Marycross, like my horses. Roger responded. Correct, Roger. For the song of healing, in front of someone who is hurt. And finally, the lamp. When you are in a place where you can't find a way out, said Marycross, like in the catacombs. Gavin added. Again, you impress me, Marycross. Excellent information. Well guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's get everything ready and go to the great cathedral tonight. Black concluded. At nightfall, the 10 boys left for the great cathedral from Asgard Ranch. This time they did not use Roger's horses. They decided to walk through the neighborhood, leaving it, and entering the streets that led towards the center of the town. And on the way to the great cathedral, after about 15 minutes walking, they arrived in front of it, an architectural building built in 1956, with Gothic details in it. Statues of gargoyles and celestial summons adorned its external walls, built entirely of marble. White, a huge cypress pine accompanied it at its side. In its front part it had a small square next to the central park of Pizcet. Finally, like two giants, its enormous towers that looked towards the west with their crosses, the tower on the left showed its large clock, and the left tower was the home of the 4 steel bells built in 1866 and brought to this place by a donation to the patriarch of the town. Bells that struck the time and announced the calls for prayers of all those devotees of the town who firmly believed in the faith of the god Eshin. It was close to 9 at night. The sky was dark and had hints that rain could fall at any moment. The large black iron bars of the gates of the great cathedral were closed, so they could not enter to explore its beautiful interior, but from the outskirts you could hear some small Gregorian chants and the hymn of faith of the summons. "Well, we're here, we have to hurry. It looks like it's going to rain," said Black as he looked up at the sky. "Raining? It could start snowing anyway," said Roger. "What are the seasons like here?" asked Louis. "In Pizcet the weather is a little crazy and disordered compared to other parts of the world. In December, January and February you have summer, March and April spring. There the first small rains begin. May, June, July, August, September you have winter, with heavy rains, storms. That does not rule out that it can also rain in summer. Even sometimes snow falls in winter in the town and the neighborhood, but very rarely. If you want lots of snow you should go to Death Mountain or the frozen route at that time, October. November you have autumn, where sometimes it rains, sometimes it's cold with strong breezes. The trees lose their leaves or turn red and yellow in their foliage. Basically that's how it is," explained Roger. "Where I come from it's not like that," said Louis, surprised. Well, Marycross, what do we have to do?" said Gavin, interrupting. "Mariah, stand in front of the tower where the clock is. Use Frieza to freeze the second hand when it is above the number 7 inches," said Marycross, explaining towards the clock. Okay, answered Priscilla and Mariah respectively. Priscilla prepared herself, looked at the clock and with perfect timing, she calculated the moment when the second hand was over the number 7 and used Frieza with her spellbook, turning the second hand into a snowflake. The second hand stopped. The step 1 was done. "Well done, Pri. Now, Gavin, Alvord, Black, use your weapons for the hour and minute hands on the numbers 3 and 11, said Marycross happily. The 3 stood in front of the tower where the clock was. Gavin first threw his boomerang and moved the hour hand from the number 9 to 10, then Alvord threw his whip and moved the number 10 to 11. Black with his shotgun fired a bullet up to the iron needle and managed to move it to the number 12. They had to make a half-moon movement and they were halfway. Gavin threw his boomerang again and moved from the number 12 to 1. Alvord with another lash of his whip moved the hand to on the second. Black, with a coup de grace from another bullet, hit the target, leaving the hand on the number 3 just as Marycross had said. She returned to express happiness by saying, "Great guys. We only have the minute hand left." Priscilla launched another Frieza attack so that the hour hand became completely fixed. Gavin again threw the boomerang and moved the number 12 hand backwards, since it was 9 o'clock, which made it more rigid and stronger because it was a reverse movement of the hand. Alvord again launched his whip and moved it a little, leaving everything in the hands of Black, who with his shotgun and his precision in the bullets, once again hit the target and the hand was at 11. Priscilla finished with the last Frieza and stopped the hand that by force wanted to return to its right. Finally, the clock was showing the indicated numbers. "Good job, everyone. Now I want everyone to put their hands on Mariah's shoulders and back, and when everyone is ready, you play the song," said Marycross. They all stood with Mariah, and she took the saxophone from her, blew, and began to play the notes that Marycross had indicated to her. When he performed the song, everything around him stopped, and then the sky began to move. The clouds moved very quickly. The sky changed various shades of colors. The clock of the great cathedral quickly melted the ice created by Priscilla, and the hands began to move quickly. A small tremor and then a white glow took them over. After this, everyone appeared in the school square. It was as if a dimension had spit them into that place. Since they fell from a height of 1 meter, they fell one on top of the other. When they regained their senses, they began to get up. Ouch, that hurt, said Louis. Where are we? Yes. I think I'll go to the bathroom, said Roger as he got up from the floor. If you could all get off, they're on top of me. Thank you, said Adrian, annoyed at the back of the crowd of people. I would get off, but the huge butt of Mariah won't let me move, said Gavin. Hey, my hand is stuck because Marycross has her feet on me, added Mariah. Stop complaining and check the date. Look at the school clock, said Priscilla. Everyone got up from the ground where they had fallen, and looked at the clock, which showed 8 in the morning. The school newspaper indicated the date they had to go. The advance of time was a success. However, they did not know where and at what time they would see the minister to present the orbs. Let's go to the living room, everyone, Daniel shouted, and everyone proceeded to go immediately. Once in the classroom, everyone waited in their places for the arrival of Professor Berenice. Samantha was one of those who had not traveled in time with the others. Like the other kids in the classroom, she warned everyone that the teacher was coming to the classroom. She's coming, she shouted. Professor Berenice entered the room. Good morning, young people, she greeted, stood in front of the classroom teacher's desk, and added, welcome to the day of your final test. Please, give me in this box the 10 orbs that they managed to get. Gavin, Daniel, Adrian, Roger, Louis, Alvord, Priscilla, Angelica, Mariah and Marycross each carried an orb in their hands. Gavin got up first from his seat, and carried the yellow orb and put it in the box. The rest rose from their places. Daniel placed the purple, Adrian the silver, Roger the white, Louis the black, Alvord the blue, Priscilla the fuchsia, Angelica the orange, Mariah the red, and Marycross the green. Thank you so much, Professor Berenice responded, and she added, excellent work, young people. Although with some tricks, they managed to find the orbs that were communicated to them. I will ask you to accompany me 10 representatives of your house to the gymnasium, where the minister awaits you. With this, I have the pleasure of announcing to you the approval of your 6th year of the course. In a few weeks you will receive the correspondence with your grades. Without further ado, please accompany me. After Professor Berenice left with the orbs, Daniel spoke to the class and suggested that the 10 who had carried each of the orbs would be the 10 chosen to attend with the minister. The rest of the room agreed and wished them the best of luck. Guys, may luck be with you, said Samantha, Teffa, and Josh when the boys left the room. Once in the gym, the place was desolate. There was no one. Everyone thought that there would be people in the place, but no, it was empty. The stands, everything was a very silent place, on a platform that had this on one of its parts, like an amphitheater. There was Minister Homer Frost, sitting in a chair, next to Lorraine. Professor Berenice approached the boys and indicated, please, in a row on this line, the minister will give you some words. The minister approached the boys, but there was something strange in his way of acting and appearance. The minister had yellow and red eyes, and said, thank you very much for the orbs, they have done an excellent job. The boys began to suspect that something was not right with that guy. He was not acting in the same way as the day they met him, and suddenly, the worst thing happened. Professor Berenice from behind, you could see it, like her eyes. They were changing color to yellow with red. The girl Lorraine was also acting strange, when suddenly, Professor Berenice said, it's time. And Lorraine raised her hands and threw Paralysaga towards the 10 students. None of them could move, they could only seeing what was happening. Professor Berenice raised her hands and with one of them, levitated the minister and brought him towards her, with her other hand. She put it on the minister's mouth and began to speak in a strange language, Ade et si redaput sonad, amals a gerb narg ho. The minister began to writhe, as if something hurt him, and screamed. Like a person who was convulsing, but his scream could not be heard clearly. Professor Berenice was covering his mouth completely, and after a few minutes, his soul was detached from his body. And it adhered to Berenice's body. Then, Lorraine took the box with the orbs and threw them to the ground. When they were together they began to shine. And Lorraine said a phrase in the same language that Professor Berenice used with the minister, Ade et si ne redapus ed somadisessin ador oigalok led sebro, and the spheres came together and began to shine even more. They all began to cast a ray of light with their color respective. Lorraine began to levitate, her eyes were blank. Professor Berenice began to levitate equally and the bodies of both of them stood next to each other, while the orbs began to rise from the ground and became in the shape of a ring around both bodies. The bodies merged and the orbs began to adhere to the torso, back, and other parts of the body of the new being that was being formed. After a few minutes, the glow lowered its incandescence. A figure with yellow eyes, brown with a white robe and legs with tentacles had appeared in front of the boys. "Who the hell are you?" Gavin asked. "Wahahahahaha." The demon laughed in front of them, telling them, "I am Baralovrin, apprentice of evil and right hand of the witch." "Apprentice?" asked Lewis as he readied his wand to attack. "Where is the witch?" Black asked while holding his shotgun. "Ha ha ha. She is gathering her powers to appear very soon, but I am afraid that you will not even be alive by the time that happens. Since I will be in charge of eliminating you, so that you do not try to avoid evil plans at all costs. Ha ha ha." The demon said. The state of paralysis that Lorraine had created had dissipated. The boys could now move, so they all decided to fight together. The duel began. The 10 boys decided to position themselves in different places, since the Baralovrin demon was quite gigantic. So on the right were Gavin, Marycross, Roger, in the center were Black, Lewis, Mariah and Adrian, and on the left side Alvord, Priscilla, Angelica were named. Baralovrin began attacking the 3 groups with her tentacles, with a very strong blow, which made them all fall, but they quickly got up. Marycross used fast on her group to increase agility and speed, as well as Mariah with hers and Alvord. He launched an attack with his whip until he hit one of the tentacles. Baralovrin launched one of her tentacles again, and caught Marycross with a suction cup, throwing her through the air until she fell again. Mariah used Reflect to protect her group. Priscilla used Aquara to throw water at her, and Adrian did the same. With her ring, Baralovrin raised 3 of its tentacles and as if it were a hammer, it began to hit each of the groups, causing some states of confusion, paralysis, frenzy. Marycross quickly used Statuna to cure all her friends of the states. Angelica bowed and called the summon of the 3 fairy sisters, Faye, May and Zay. A huge circle of light began to come out of the ground. From it came a sunflower, a geranium and a succulent. The 3 girls came out of them, Faye, May and Zay, and they began to fight against Baralovrin. Faye used Frieza with her Morpho butterfly wings, which was effective since it turned one of the 4 into Ice Baralovrin's tentacles, while she attacked with physical blows but they avoided the attack. May launched Aquara with her mouth, creating a kind of high tide and made Baralovrin destabilize and lose the turn. And finally Zay launched Electra's lightning bolt against Baralovrin, which upon encountering the water, electrocuted her a lot, causing her to lose a lot of vitality. She began with a state of paralysis and finally could not get back up. where again Faye used Frieza to make ice the second tentacle. Baralovran, with his gaze, began to cast Burna on the summon, which hit their vitality quite a bit. Faye, Mei and Zay had charged their special attack called the Essence of the Forest with energy. A trio attack that attacked with Electraga, Aquarga and Friezaga, causing an explosion and great damage to Baralovran, causing the two tentacles that she had made of ice to be destroyed. Leaving her with only two tentacles, it was impossible for her to get up again, so she continued attacking with her gaze, again with an attack from Burnaga, causing the three fairy sisters to lose vitality, dissipating. So Alvord thought about calling Boran, but Black told him no. At that Gavin tells them, ice on their tentacles and then we destroy them. So Priscilla launched a Frieza to turn the third tentacle into ice. Baralovran launched Burnaga on the boys. Roger launched his trident on the ice of the tentacle to break it, followed by Angelica with his katana, and Black used his special attack with his shotgun and destroyed the third tentacle, leaving only the last one, which Baralovran was very weakened, and her last Burnaga attack failed, where Priscilla took advantage and quickly launched Frieza again, filled the last tentacle with ice, giving Adrian and Lewis the opportunity that with their explosives where they threw them towards the ice, and Lewis with his wand launched Burna, causing the explosives that Adrian threw to explode, destroying the last tentacle, leaving Baralovran knocked out, and where everyone together launched an elemental attack of different magic to end the duel. The remaining body of Baralovran rose, began to turn illuminated white, and was destroyed into 1,000 pieces like small rays of light. The boys had once again won the duel. At the end of the duel, and everything dissipated in the gym, a silence once again filled the place, and when they proceeded to put a blanket on the minister's body, a voice came out of him, rolling his eyes, ha, 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 ha. I think I underestimated you. You are stronger than I thought. I thought that this time I would get rid of you, but no, very soon you will know the true power of evil. We will see you soon, said that malevolent voice as if it came from the underworld, a voice that penetrated their minds for long minutes until it dissipated. Black proceeded to place a blanket over the body of the slain minister. Poor Mr. Minister, he didn't deserve it, said Black sadly. All this time, he was used. I think the collection of the orbs was in order, so that we would look for them for her and be able to increase her powers. Poor man. He paid dearly. His mind got carried away and led him to death, said Marycross. Look at that, Gavin shouted as he pointed towards the ceiling of the gym. Everyone looked towards the ceiling of the gym where some small flashes of the color of the orbs. They formed these spheres again, and one by one, they began to be destroyed into 1,000 pieces. The orbs, Angelica shouted. What happened to them? Alvord shouted. This is all very strange, said Roger. They exploded like a star. Mariah commented. I think it was all a trap. Towards us, he said. Lewis, looking at the rest of the group, I think the same thing. Adrian added. I wouldn't believe it that way, said Marycross. Why do you say that? Black asked. The minister and his assistant were bewitched by the witch. It seems that the orbs were desecrated. They had a lot of power, hidden, but we had no idea, in this case. They were used to be used in darkness and evil, explained Marycross. Do you mean that already does the witch have influence over the education department? And not only at the school? Gavin asked. That's right, the minister was seduced. With his task of the orbs, Baralovran managed to get us to gather them, and used the Mo language to release his power, said Marycross. Mo language? Asked Adrian. An ancient language, used for both sides, light and darkness. I read it in a book. It is said that the Mo language was used by a few families who were very faithful to spirituality. Among them are the Devas, a family that lived many years ago. It is currently unknown if they have descendants. But it is said that the witch spoke that language. Only the descendants of that family could speak it. Mary Cross argued. Could Berenice be descendants of the witch? Asked Roger. No. She was only possessed and used by her, another person who paid dearly for her life, and was murdered. If your mind is penetrated and manipulated by the witch, she can do what? Is there any kind of translation for that language? Lewis asked curiously as he put his hand on his chin. That's a good question. What if we find runes on this language? Asked Priscilla. I doubt they exist. It is only a verbal language, but if there is, there are certain people who can decipher some words, said Mary Cross. Like who? Asked Black. Some vicars, patriarchs, clerics, shamans, nuns. People deep in the world of devotion and spirituality. But the new generations of these groups do not specialize in that. They are afraid of falling into darkness. But the people of these groups are over 80 or 90 years old. Some of them could help us, even priestesses or summoners who have experienced light and darkness, Mary Cross added. We'd better go to the room and notify the director what happened, said Black, motivating the group to leave the place. Everyone went back to the living room to collect their notes, and the summer vacation began, where some Christmas adventures awaited.